Hello all, myself Dr.U.Umadevi, Assistant Professor of Botany. In this video, we will be seeing a topic on genetics. The topic is Mendel's selection of experimental plant. So, in this topic, we will be seeing the characters that Mendel chose for this experiment. Mendel, for his experiment in hybridization, had certain considerations for the selection of plant. The considerations which he had are variation, reproduction, controlled mating, short life cycle, large number of offsprings and convenience in handling. So, let us see one by one. So, variation is the plant should be having variety of expressions in traits. So, for the experiment he considered like the plants which he chosen for the experiment should have a variety of expressing traits, or there should be difference in characters. So, though the characters are different, the selector only one character will be chosen for the experiment and it alone will be considered for the studies. And next is the reproduction. So, reproduction is the plant should be sexually reproducing one, because only then the offsprings will be able to receive different characters from both the male and female parents. So, the plant which he has chosen will have a sexually reproducing character, and those plants will be expressing different traits that is received from the male and female parents. And third consideration is controlled mating. So, this is a very important thing. So, plants should usually the plants will have self pollinating character. So, for the study, for the hybridization studies, Mendel wanted to choose a plant in which cross pollination will be possible. So, for the experiment cross pollination will give different characters, and also he can do a crossing, a well planned crossing in the plant. So, this is another consideration which he pointed out. And next is the short life cycle. The plant should have a very short life cycle, so that he can study the plant of different plant cycle of different life cycle in a short period of time. So, the results can be obtained in a short period after a sequence of life cycle of the plant. And next consideration is the large number of offsprings. The organisms which have been chosen for the hybridization experiment should produce large number of offsprings. So, this helps one to correct the data for arriving for a correct conclusion. So, large number of offsprings leads to a accurate result. So, the plant which has to be chosen should produce large number of offsprings. And next consideration is convenience in handling. So, the experimental species should be of a type which will be very convenient for the researcher to work on it. So, the mating should be controlled, and the growth of the plant, raising the plant should be an easy one, and it should be inexpensive. So, considering all these, the plant is being chosen. So, these are the various conditions which Mendel considered. So, considering all these considerations, Mendel chose pea plant, edible pea plant, which is Pisum sativum. He took this pea plant for his experimental study. So, pea plant fulfills all the considerations which Mendel has stated. So, this plant, since it fulfilled all the criteria, Mendel chose this plant for his further studies. So, for the study he took 7 different characters of pea plant. So, they are stem height, flower color, flower position, pod shape, pod color, seed shape and seed color. These are the 7 different categories or 7 different characters which Mendel chose for his experiment. For each experiment, any one of these character will be chosen, and here you can see the different characters of the plant which Mendel has chosen. The first one is the seed form. So, it can be round or wrinkled, and next one is the seed color, it may be yellow or green, and next one is the shape of the seed, which may be inflated or constricted, and seed color, that is a pod color may be inflate green or yellow, and the flower color, it can be purple or white, and the next character is the position of the flower, it may be axial or it can be at the terminal, and the height of the plant, it can be tall or dwarf. So, two different contrasting characters were chosen, and one character is kept as dominant and another one as recessive. So, coming to the experimental part. So, what Mendel did for his experiment is, he did emasculation process. He followed emasculation. Emasculation is the process of removal of anthers from the flower. So, usually in pea plant, pollen grains fall directly on the flowers, on the same flowers. So, pollen grains fall on the stigma of the same flowers, which leads to self pollination. But Mendel, for his hybridization experiment, what he did was, he followed emasculation technique. So, in this technique, he removed the anthers of the female flower and he took the pollen grains from the male flower and he transferred it to the female flowers where the anthers has been already removed. So, by dusting the pollens on the stigma directly, he performed various hybridization techniques. To avoid contamination by the pollen grains from other flower, he covered the flowers with bag. This process of making the removing the anthers and transferring the pollen grains to the flower is called as emasculation. So, he followed emasculation technique to do cross pollination. So, this is how the emasculation is done, and after emasculation, the plants with one alternative character was taken as dominant and the plant with another alternative character was taken as recessive one. So, one is considered as male and another one is as female. So, both these parents, male and female, were crossed and the F1 generation was observed. The F1 generation was again self crossed and the offsprings obtained were considered as F2 generation. He also did reciprocal crosses where each cross was made in two different ways, that is a phenotype A. Consider this as a tall plant, male tall plant, and to this a female dwarf plant is crossed. The same tall and dwarf plant, again it is reciprocated with a dwarf male and tall female. So, such reciprocal crosses were also made to obtain a correct and accurate result. So, Mendel performed emasculation followed by crossing. So, this crossing was again done in a reciprocal way. So, reciprocal crosses were also counted and finally he obtained the results. So, this is how a tall plant is crossed with a dwarf plant. In the F1 generation, he got only the tall plant, all tall plants, and when the tall plant is again self crossed, in the F2 generation, both tall and dwarf plants were obtained in the ratio of 3:1, which shows there is influence of the dominant and recessive characters. So, this is the actual data obtained by Mendel's experiment. You can see all the different characters, all the 7 characters were studied by Mendel, and in each character there is in the F1 generation all the dominant characters were expressed, and in the F2 generation both the dominant and recessive characters were expressed in the ratio of 3:1. This is the experiment conducted by Mendel, and this is the reason for Mendel to select the pea plant for his experimental study. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this information will be useful to you and hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.